Have you ever considered that listening might be something that you do with your whole self and not just your ears? Welcome to YSM Conversations, where we are diving into the depths of our beings. I am Danielle YS, and I get to guide women through the darkness of discomfort into their deepest selves so they can bring forth their soul signatures. And I'm here with
Victoria McMahon, and I guide people into the remembrance of that soul signature to live the beautiful, amazing life they came here to be.
over this next couple of episodes, we are going to be diving into what it means to listen with your whole self beyond the ears.
Hi again, Danielle and I in conversation. And what sparked for us was how listening beyond the ears brings us into what it means to be listening in the intuitive self.
Why would it be helpful to listen to our intuition? What comes to you?
If we're designed to listen from this innate being that we are, the intuition is so woven into that it becomes, why would you not? Right? And that seems like a funny way to respond. And at the same time, why would you not? Because it goes into what we'll have in our conversation today about following and trusting the intuition and how we may override our intuitions.
Yeah. And it's funny because oftentimes we get to that point of, oh, well, why would I not by not trusting it in the first place, where something maybe isn't right for you, but you logic yourself into doing that thing because it's good for you or there's an expectation. And then afterwards, it feels like there's something off or maybe something negative or bad happened. And you're like, not even I should have known, I did know, and I didn't follow it. I feel like more often than not, that's the path that leads us to, well, why would I not listen to my intuition?
So, why would I want to? Because I want the freedom and the full range of what I have access to in order to have my own sovereign guide in how I respond in my life, in what I choose, in what I say yes to, say no to. And so for me, that's one big piece of why it gives me more intelligence to operate from.
I love that phrase that you use, sovereign guide. One of the things with being able to hear and then choose our intuition is that self trust, where I have access to more wisdom than I necessarily have just with my mind alone. I trust that wisdom. I trust myself. I trust the source that it's coming from. And that allows us so much more confidence, so much more courage, so much more sovereignty to move through our lives and not have to spend minutes, hours, days, weeks, years ruminating on something and thinking, well, what if I do this? And instead just honing in on, is it a yes or is it a no intuitively?
I love how what you're saying gives us the recognition that we guide our own process. In that guidance, what becomes a self trust is just like we talked about in other conversations. Listening beyond the ears is about developing our own internal guidance, self trusting system, moving from within into what the world experience is instead of always drawing it into the ears and then trying to make it fit. If I become really good at trusting myself, my own listening from within, then if I hear something from the outside, I have more capacity to sense, not just in the physical sensation of it, but sense in the feeling, sense in the thinking, the emotion, if it's a fit.
Exactly. And that's where that clear yes and clear no comes into play. When we're listening to our intuition or when we get those intuitive hits, it's a very clear yes, no, this path. The place where it gets not clear and we start to doubt ourselves is in the mind, where the mind is like, but what about X, Y, and Z? And maybe we should do A, B, and C. And then we start doubting that trust that we can have in ourselves through our intuition. I'm curious if you've ever had an experience of that that is coming to you strongly to share with everyone.
Recently, I wrote about this in a Substack post. I had this experience that created a vital sense of recognizing how much I trust myself now. Even when it feels there's doubt, I could talk about I could name it, give the body sensation, the connection to that sense of doubt. Is the next step to go here or to go here? And I think what's important about that is we get conversations, we get experiences every day that help us build that muscle. And we keep talking about building the muscle, building that listening capacity. And there's different ways, building it with body language and sensation, building it with listening beyond the ears into our physical system. Now it's the intuitive aspect that comes through the physical system. And what's really standing out to me is how I have always used the breath as the integral part of my guidance system to building these muscles, these capacities for listening the full being. Over the years, I've taught through movement, through coaching, through different practices, how integral the breath is to supporting us to develop our self-trust. What I find happening over and over again, it's like going back to the conversation where you talked about the scream and the whisper, that either guides you into that intuitive self-trust in the moment. If you are willing to allow yourself to be so present, you can come into that deeper listening of intuition that gives you that trusted information. Everything's in alignment, if you will, not just body alignment, but thinking alignment, feeling alignment, all giving you the yes feedback. That makes sense?
It does. It absolutely does. And I think in our society, we lean on external feedback so much and external acknowledgement that allows us to not trust ourselves and our intuition because we're oftentimes looking outside for not just answers, but affirming that a direction we're going is right. Like so many times, I know I found myself knowing what's right with my intuition, but then also still wanting to share it with somebody else and have them say, yeah, that sounds great. But it doesn't actually matter what that other person's perspective is in that moment for a direction that we are taking for ourselves. But it's that hardening and solidifying of trust in ourselves and in that direction to be able to be like, yes, I know that's the right direction. Let's move forward without having to consult with other people, but really just knowing that we can give ourselves the okay. We can trust that is the direction we need to move in. There's also trust in the universe saying, I know this is the right direction for me, even if it doesn't lead me down the path I'm thinking it's going to lead me down, because we don't know where we're going to go on our journeys. And what the universe has in store for us is so much more magical than we could ever have dreamed up. It's the trust in ourselves and that intuitive hit. It's the right path, regardless of if it's the path we think we're supposed to be on.
I've got a couple of things swirling right now, and I'm kind of dropping into the pause to say, do I go here? Do I go there? The sense that what sources me already knows what I may not know. It's just that simple to say, universe, what would you have me know? Sit in the stillness of myself long enough to receive. Maybe what's happening is I'm getting the access to what universe would have me know, and it comes in through a nudge or a word, or I see something visually in the world that I go, oh, that's it. We talk about those as the intuitive hits that come in different ways, serendipity, or different ways that we language it. I think what's important is that the more I invite that kind of inner conversation, the more I have built that self-trust over time. Now it feels more and more like when I get a nudge from the universe, I just automatically go with it. Last fall, I saw an invitation for a retreat online. It just popped into my online field. I felt my body say, I got all the sensation. I got all the listening beyond the ears kind of feeling. And I got this intuitive hit. Before I even knew it, the body was typing, clicking, and I was signed up before my mind had time to overwrite it. And I was like, how about that?
So I'm going to request that we pause and really open up that response in there so that we can tease apart that intuitive yes, the intuitive in your body. Walk us through it. You got the mailer, the invitation to this retreat.
I'm going back and I'm feeling like my arms and from my heart space, the energy just vibrating out. Like, what's this excitement about? And I'm looking at this and saying, why is the body excited? At the same time that I'm feeling this energy of excitement, I'm also feeling my body solid in the chair. I'm feeling this sense of connectedness while I'm excited. And that feels important to recognize those two signals interacting, that expansion and that sense of what we might call contraction, what I might call stability, both happening simultaneously. As I think about it now, that's the signal that this is a fit. I'm in my relationship to what's rising. I'm in my relationship to feeling curious and interested in whatever's in front of me. It just happened to be this retreat.
The image that comes to mind for me is being plugged in, like actually being plugged in as a socket. Like you have that grounding and that physical plug in, but then also the vibration and the energy moving through. Maybe that's you being really fully plugged into source energy, to universe energy, whatever you want to call it, receiving it, but also being a channel for that energy to come into the world in a more physical way, a more manifested way.
And I want to add to that, plugging into feeling that source, bringing this to me, and then to take the action, that source energy nudging got fully expressed. Follow the energy to its fullness in your being. What do you do with this intuitive nudge that shows up for you? Do you actually allow the full expression of it? And that could have been signing up for a retreat, and it could have been calling someone. It could have been writing a story. It could have been doing a yoga practice to just enjoy the energy of the experience. It could have happened in infinite ways. I wonder what happens for us when we override the stopping of the expression of who we are as a full being, that we stop that listening from fully expressing itself.
Important to say that the full expression can also be stillness. It doesn't have to look like an act. Stillness isn't necessarily the same as closing down of the expression or stopping the expression. Those are two distinct things, depending on what that nudge is asking us to do. That question that you have of what does happen when we override that intuitive hit, that nudge, and decide to go a different direction or do something different than what that nudge is nudging us to do. The first thing that came to me was it dissipates into other directions, and I'm sure comes back in the patterns we experience and express in our lives. Those are coming back tenfold, 100-fold until we respond to that nudge.
And that dissipation, it just gets recreated in some other way, whether it be a nudge or a whisper, a scream. They're all potentials for how we access our full self being. And today it's how do we listen the intuitive intelligence full self being? It's not that they're all not interwoven. It's like you have a conversation about the nuances of the different ways of listening. And then it's starting to recognize how they all work together to create this full being picture that makes us incredible human beings having this amazing experience.
So I'm curious, what would be your number one recommendation for somebody to start listening more deeply to these nudges and choosing the nudge?
It feels like the first way of remembering is try not to discount the nudge. See if you can invite and sit with it. Like I've been doing that so many years now that the self-trust has developed where I just go with it now. I feel like I'm being led. But in the beginning, it was, what? You say, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah. And so when I hear myself say that, what if that really is a great idea for me to explore? So don't automatically discount what you're getting as an intuitive listening, an intuitive hit, what feels like it comes out of nowhere. I know you and I both work in the Reiki energy field. I remember being in a session with a client, and I received this intuitive hit with her. And I said, I'm not sure what this is, but I've got an image of a little red wagon. What's that got to do with anything? And I'm supposed to just tell you, little red wagon, does that have any meaning for you? And the whole flood of a story came out. And there was something about the resurfacing of this story for the client that integrated what she was in the experience of in the body, in the feelings and emotions rising up, that just gave it a place for her to have more access, understanding of what she was integrating for herself. And her physical system completely relaxed into an aha, her own intuitive integration of all of the body sensations and feeling and thinking that came up through the session. So it was a way to deeper integrate her into remembering and trusting her own intuition as well. Had I not said anything, it would have been not paying attention to the intuition or allowing that energy to dissipate, and the juiciness of what it was for her would not have become a deeper listening.
I love that. Don't discount the nudge. See if you can practice not discounting the nudge because you've definitely had them before. You have definitely experienced them. And maybe as you go forth from this conversation, as you experience them now, it's a, oh, okay, let's just be with it. We don't have to take action on it yet. We don't have to discount it yet. Let's just be with it and see if anything comes. Maybe there's another nudge that's like, no, really, go. And then allow yourself to follow. Your intuition is going to guide you where you're meant to be and where you are being invited to next.
That nudge, if you discount it, may turn into a 2x4. I really want you to do that.
Exactly, the scream.
Exactly.
So, what are our 3 takeaways from today?
That we innately hold the capacity of our full being nature beyond our ears, through our bodies, and through the intuitive nudging that source communicates.
And that your intuitive nudges, like Victoria's, may feel both expansive but also very grounded. And then also a takeaway, don't discount the nudges so quickly. Just let yourself sit with them and then wait for the next nudge and see what happens. We don't have to do anything to start out with besides just listening. It's so good to be with you as always, and so good to be able to share with everybody. Any final nudges before we close out for today?
The warmth of my heart is having me say it's in the simplicity of allowing ourselves to listen in all the ways that we have access to listening. And just that simple knowing evolves us, opens us up into the more of who we are. So it's not about having to do anything.
And as we're wrapping up this mini series on listening with the whole self, just remembering that there are other ways of listening beyond the ears, with the body, with the intuition. And the most important piece is to practice, is to stay with it. The physical sensations, the intuitive nudges, just stay with it and practice, and you will be guided to where you need to be.
And they come to us. I love that.
Thank you so much for joining us for today and for this whole series. If you haven't watched the other videos on listening with the whole self, definitely go back and do it. There's 3 of them total. Today is part 3. It is a whole ecosystem of listening with the whole self, and we can't wait for our next mini series with you. We'll see you
Well.
soon.